Happy Friday! Gosh, I'm so weird. Sorry about that. Happy Friday. Thank you for bearing with me today. I know I'm not here. I'm actually across the country right now. But I really appreciate you, being here, doing your class, watching this. And I hope it goes well with your sub. So, as you know, this week we have been talking about the developmental theorists. We've gone through our behavioral and humanistic, and we have also gone through our cognitive theorists. So now we're going to talk about our psychoanalytical theorists, and we're going to specifically talk about Freud and Erikson. You may choose to watch this. You may not choose to watch this. If you prefer just to kind of go through these and take your own notes, that's fine. Whatever you need works best for me as well. So I'm going to go ahead and present my screen. All right, psychoanalytical theories. First one up is Sigmund Freud. He was a pioneer of applying psychoanalytical theory. As you can see, he is one of our older theorists. He was born in 1856 and lived until 1939. And in his time, he focused on early life experiences. And so he believed that what happens really early in life affects a person's life for years and years to come. And so it's not totally scientifically sound, but he opened the door for a new way of looking at and understanding development. So what I want you to do right now is go ahead and pause me and watch that video. And then when you're ready, come back. All right, now that you are back, we are going to move on to Erik Erikson. He is he's actually a very, very well-known theorist and created the 8 life stages. And so at each stage, an individual typically goes through or resolves a psychological or social conflict. And if the conflict is not resolved, it typically impacts the future for developmental stages. So if one developmental stage is not reached, it actually will affect these future ones. So we're actually going to go through these. But as you can see in this photo right here, there's an increase in complexity, and it goes from infancy all the way to older adult. We're going to go through those first, and then I'm going to want you to come back and then watch this video right here. So stage 1 is trust versus mistrust. This is birth to 1 year. Typically with this one, babies learn to trust that their caregivers are going to meet their needs. And so we remember those needs from Maslow. Includes food, attention, or physical contact, interaction, and safety. So those basic human needs are met, and that's where that trust comes in. When these are not met, babies do not learn to trust others and typically view the world as unpredictable and typically unsafe. Stage 2 is autonomy versus shame and doubt. Sorry, lost track of things in my brain. This is from those toddler years, usually 1 to 3 years old, where they're really learning to control their bodies. By feeding, using the toilet, they go through learning how to dress themselves and developing physically. And so this includes like potty training, starting to feed themselves, learning to use utensils, all of that kind of stuff. And as they learn these new skills, they become a lot more self-confident, which is exciting. Typically, a lack of control or independence can make them feel like they're failures and can cause shame and doubt. And so if they aren't kind of taking control of their bodies or have a lack of control, this is typically an issue with future development because it causes this shame and doubt. Typically, this is caused by caregivers for pushing them to always kind of do different things or not always the right things. And so we just need to make sure that as we are working with our 1 to 3-year-olds, we are really helping them take control of their bodies and learning how to feed themselves, learning how to use the bathroom, giving them the opportunity to dress themselves, working on handwriting and all of that kind of stuff to really build that self-confidence. Stage 3 is initiative versus guilt. This is early childhood from 3 to 5 years. Typically, younger children learn about the world through exploring and through their experiences, by trying something and making a mistake. They learn what's real versus what is imaginary. And so typically when you are really young, so 1 to 3, you don't really understand, like you have an imagination, but really don't understand that it's an imagination yet. And now from 3 to 5, they're starting to develop a really large imagination. And they start to take initiative for their place in the world. They're recognizing that they're their own individual, and they start to explore that. If there is criticism or punishment, this can actually result in guilt for their actions. And so they really kind of develop that sort of guilt, and don't always take criticism and punishment well. And so we have to, as we are working with 3 to 5-year-olds, recognize what punishment is acceptable at that specific age group so that we are not causing more harm to their development. Stage 4 is industry versus inferiority. Middle childhood-ish. So about 6 to 12 years old, where children really kind of develop the task to become, they have both their school and their home, and they're kind of learning the differences between that. And they develop a sense of self and confidence by becoming pretty confident with the outside world. They're really starting to develop into their personality and into their individuality. If they or others compare themselves negatively, inferiority can actually surface. And so we have this kind of sense of feeling inferior to those that we're comparing ourselves to. And I think we see this a lot in our world. So we really want to kind of recognize ourselves as an individual, and an individual that is important in our own unique way, and really developing into this world outside. Stage 5, identity versus role confusion. So this is typically those adolescent years. This is you all right now, 13 to 18 years old. Preteens and teens start to experiment with a number of different roles, especially those that are sisters or brothers or daughters or sons or student and friend and employee. These are all roles to consider. Sometimes we're caregivers at this age as well. And typically when we have these roles, if central or core identity is not established, there is role confusion and not really recognizing what your role is in the world. But we have to remember that we have a bunch of different hats and a bunch of different roles that we take. And so we have to recognize these roles as they are. Stage 6 is intimacy versus isolation. So this is typically early adulthood. This is where I'm at. Age 19 through 39 years old. Typically during later adolescence and early adulthood, we become and develop intimate relationships with either a significant other and whatnot. And these relationships require sharing one's self emotionally. And so when you are building those relationships and kind of typically finding the one or the person you choose to spend your life with, you are opening up emotionally. And sometimes if we haven't established those emotions, we can actually fail to establish emotional intimacy, and it results in emotional or psychological isolation. So sometimes we do have to share our emotions, even if we don't like it. But it's really important too, so that we don't kind of result in the failure to establish those, and we don't feel isolated both emotionally and psychologically. Stage 7 is generativity versus stagnation. And what that basically means is typically in middle adulthood, so 40 through 65, adults in midlife begin to place emphasis really on helping others and sharing their culture with the next generation. So as you grow older, you may have kids, or you may be in a job where you're working with younger generations, or you have nieces or nephews or something like that, where you are sharing knowledge, you are helping them, you are really trying to build them and sharing culture with this younger generation. And this can be done, like I said, in many ways, whether you're raising children, teaching, working in different places around the community, and passing along different cultural values. Sorry, hang on. So typically a lack of generativity can lead to stagnation, where you're kind of feeling like stagnant, where you're not really feeling like you're moving forward in your life. So yeah. Stage 8 is integrity versus despair. Sorry. Older adulthood says 66 years and older. Typically at this age, they are starting to reflect. They're really starting to reflect on life and the meaning and the role that they played in this life. And if people are typically satisfied with the meaning of their life, there's a sense of integrity for them with just having that satisfaction. And then without finding the meaning to one's own life, typically people will develop this despair feeling, or they don't feel like they really fulfilled the life that they leaded, which is pretty unfortunate when we hit those years and we can't go backwards. And so we really want to work on that as we are going through these kind of beginning stages before we reach this 8th stage. So as we know, in conclusion, there are so many different theories out there that kind of go, there's so many theories out there, and they're not 100% the truth. They actually all work together to really describe the complexity of humans. And so kind of the idea is that so we can really, I get the ideas of oh my gosh, my words are not coming out how I want them to right now. We are really complex people and humans. And in order to describe that, we need to use some of these theories to really help understand the development, especially in those younger years, and as we grow and develop through our entire life. So the last thing I want you to do is go back to this page, go ahead and watch this video on Erik Erikson, and then when you are done, go ahead and work on your developmental theorist baseball cards, and then have a fantastic Friday and a fantastic weekend. See you later.